This is a message, and we're going to talk now about Eduardo Bolsonaro's warning that banks may face heavy fines for maintaining accounts of sanctioned individuals. According to Eduardo Bolsonaro, banks here in Brazil misunderstood the application of the Magnitsky Act. No, they cannot even maintain accounts in RE, or Brazilian banks will face fines and lose access to SWIFT. So Brazilian banks need to start resolving this issue very quickly because no one will be spared. This news was suggested by Gato Palado, Dumato, My Baby Wow, and several other people. Thanks to the people who suggested news on our website, Visão Libertarian. And thank you for watching our video. If you like our content, please leave your like and subscribe to our channel. So look at this Estadio column here. Eduardo Bolsonaro says that banks may face heavy fines for maintaining accounts of sanctioned individuals. The Supreme Court minister was sanctioned by the United States under the Magnitsky Act, which provides for the freezing, but the initial assessment from the financial sector was that only dollar-denominated transactions would be prohibited for Alexandre de Moraes. But even Fasha himself comments on Eduardo Bolsonaro's statement here, saying that, look, the banks actually know this. They know very well what an OFAC sanction means. I worked in banks for over 15 years and all I saw was a complete ban on any relationship with any citizen under OFAC sanctions. No bank wants $1 billion fine and to be cut off from SWIFT, and some won't even wait for official notification. The thing is, they don't announce this publicly to avoid drawing attention to themselves. But they know that ultimately there's no choice, comply or perish. So he's saying that Café Confero is responding to this whole situation here. So that's the situation. Brazilian banks know they have no alternative regarding the Magnitsky Act. They must close Alexandre de Moraes' accounts immediately. They're in this position where they're waiting for the STF to resolve the issue and the Bolsonaro proceedings, resolve the social media censorship matter, and find a way to handle this situation. But if this solution takes too long, the banks won't have any alternative. They'll have to cancel Moraes' accounts. And to think about it, it's what I already told you. The STF said it will force banks to keep Moraes' account. In other words, banks in Brazil are going to be in trouble. I'll find it beautiful, because these financial elite folks from Sao Paulo, from the Sao Paulo banks, everyone voted for Lula. Not because Bolsonaro imitated someone who was sick with COVID or whatever. They made up that story, which isn't even true. Bolsonaro didn't imitate anyone, but they made up this story, saying we can't vote for Bolsonaro, that we have to vote for Lula, that Lula is a Democrat, and now everyone's going down the drain. I hope they all go bankrupt, and now Eduardo Bolsonaro is saying this here. Congressman Eduardo Bolsonaro was in Washington this week for a round of talks with Trump administration members, suggesting that Brazilian banks have been maintaining accounts for the minister that are at risk and may face severe penalties. Yes, exactly, that's how US sanctions work. The magistrate was sanctioned by the United States under the Magnitsky Act, which provides for the blocking of bank accounts. The initial assessment of the financial sector was that only dollar operations would be prohibited for Moraes, but as Fasha mentions here, that's not the case. Any operation, including accounts in RE, is prohibited for Moraes. They have to cut everything off. Brazilian banks are deeply involved in this. It's not that they will resolve the issue. They will find a way to negotiate and resolve it, and they are negotiating, but it's taking too long. This solution is taking too long. It needs to be done quickly. CNF officials, pay attention. I know you're nervous. You should be. The situation is worrisome. The fact is, if these people don't quickly resolve and end this absurd process against Bolsonaro and end the censorship of social media, things will go badly, very badly for you. The banks that maintain Moraes accounts are at serious risk. They may receive a notification or a severe fine. There is a very strong possibility that the pressure will increase even further for certain Brazilian authorities. In other words, we talked about this in yesterday's video, right? Eduardo Bolsonaro currently wants the United States to focus on Alexandre de Moraes, not extended to other CF members or ministers. Obviously, this is temporary. If people don't cooperate, there will be consequences for everyone there, right? But for now, the focus is on Alexandre de Moraes. What they want now is to ensure that OFAC sanctions are being implemented correctly. In other words, that Alexandre de Moraes has indeed lost all his credit cards and bank accounts, and more than that, anyone connected to Alexandre de Moraes must also lose their bank accounts. there's no need for a specific OFAC notice to state that, for example, Vivian Barsi must lose her bank accounts. No, under the Magnitsky law designation, she automatically loses all her bank accounts. It's possible that the United States will choose to issue an additional notice about this, noting that she is connected to Alexandra de Moraes. Anyway, Eduardo has also said that other STF ministers, as well as the presidents of the Chamber and Senate, may be sanctioned. But for now, people are waiting to see what will happen, right? And what's happening here in Brazil is very clear to me. These two figures, Lula and Alexandra de Moraes, don't care at all. They want to fight with the United States. Lula wants a solution like Venezuela's here in Brazil. He wants to push Brazil into communism and isolate it completely from the world. The Brazilian economy is going down the drain, but he, as commander-in-chief of Brazil, is comfortable. Alexandre de Moraes, because he's already lost everything, wants to bring more people down with him in the Supreme Court. So these two aren't going to back down. The question is whether the rest of the people will develop a backbone and decide to stand up to these people. Hugo Moura and Alcolumbre are risking their economic future because of this mess that Lula is creating by wanting to fight Trump. Going head-to-head with Trump, I think Hugo Moura and Alcolumbre's behavior is quite remarkable. How are they stooping so low for Lula, man? It's incredible. I don't know what Lula is promising them. What fortune is at the end of that rainbow that Lula is promising them? But it must be something very big, because in the end, these guys are debasing themselves to an unimaginable level and risking their future. And make no mistake, my friend, it's a lost cause. If you think Lula is going to win against the United States, he won't be able to. Here, look, on Thursday the 14th, the American president again criticized Brazil and defended Bolsonaro. Indeed, there was an interview, a press conference where he spoke once again, defended Bolsonaro, said this process is an outrage, a process of political persecution, clearly political persecution, a witch hunt, and all that. Anyway, here's an exclusive. Eduardo Bolsonaro warns about more sanctions regarding Brazil and possibly tariffs. So after the meeting there, in the United States, he also had a meeting yesterday at the White House, and he's saying here, look, the STF ministers need to understand they've lost power. There's no scenario where the Supreme Court comes out victorious from this entire mess. They're in conflict with a nuclear power, an economic powerhouse of the world, not to mention military power, because obviously it is that too. Additionally, there was another post yesterday that drew a lot of attention here. The Treasury Department placed several people from the Jalisco cartel on the OFAC foreign assets control list. Today, the U.S. Treasury included individuals from the Mexican cartel linked to timeshare fraud on the foreign assets control list. By the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the CJNJ is a violent cartel that's flooding our country with fentanyl and expanding drug trafficking operations. A lot of things here. This is the same list that Moraes is on, the same kind of people. Moraes fits exactly the same pattern. The USA profile in Portuguese provided this translation. The Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets controls sanctioned Mexican individuals and companies linked to timeshare fraud by the Jalisco New Generation terrorist cartel. And Eduardo Bolsonaro reposted this matter, speaking here, look closely at this Mexico case. It's under OFAC sanctions. Just like the Moraes case, banks that maintain Moraes accounts are at risk. A notification may come, a severe fine may come. There is a very strong possibility that the heat will increase even more for certain Brazilian authorities. In other words, the warning he's giving here is very... This understanding that Brazilian banks have of OFAC is incorrect. They must cancel all of Moraes' accounts and those of his entire family, everyone close to him. Those close to Alexandre de Moraes must have their accounts canceled. Brazilian banks risk receiving a very large fine. I know they are waiting. The United States is also waiting. To see if people reach an agreement, come to an agreement and end this situation, solve the problem, resolve the Bolsonaro lawsuit issue. Resolve the network censorship issue, and then great could be worse, right? But as I told you, it's taking too long. We've been waiting for a week now for a solution to this problem. I suggest that the people in Brasilia start listening less. to Lula and less to Alexandre de Moraes and start paying attention to what's happening. How is this going to end? How will this conflict between Brazil and the United States end? How do you think it will end? There are only two options. Either Brazil does the right thing because it is the right thing. It's not about submitting to the United States, it's about doing the right thing because the case against Bolsonaro is truly absurd. Either that happens, or Brazil will clash with the United States. We're heading down Venezuela's path, and my friend, that path. Everyone knows what it's like. It's misery, isolation, and financial loss for everyone. The elite will remain elite. They'll keep their money. But the rest of the population will suffer greatly because of this foolishness that Hugo Mota and Alcolumbre are maintaining to obey Lula. Who knows what Lula is offering them? Because I just can't understand it, man. There has to be something behind this story. What is the doctor offering Alcolumbre and Hugo Mota for them to be acting like this? So vehemently against the opposition and in favor of the government? What's happening in this situation? It makes no sense at all. Click the Become a Member button below to learn about the terms and benefits of sponsoring the channel. For more information about our project, visit our websites shown on the screen.